Hi everyone, my name is Mike and I live in Portland, Oregon, and I've seen quite a few of these It Gets Better videos, and I was very inspired by most of them, and so I figured I would tell my story too. And my story may not be one that tells as many difficulties as those maybe in the South or other conservative areas, because I was very fortunate to grow up in a very liberal place. But I still did have a lot of problems that occurred very early in my life before I even knew what it meant to be gay and what the word even meant. For a while, before my mom remarried when I was 3 or 4 years old, pretty young, I lived with just her, and my dad lived in Tennessee after they divorced. And so, naturally, I was a very feminine boy and very not masculine, I guess, which is, now I know, bullcrap, because there's nothing wrong with that. Um, but I got made fun of a lot in school, especially around 7 or 8 years old, because I was so girly that all the kids just stayed away from me, and I had maybe 2 friends who were outcasts as well. And so I would hear things from, mind you, second graders telling me that I was really weird and why was I so girly and that I was really gross and nobody liked me. And that was just a daily occurrence um, for a couple years of my life. And being the sensitive guy I was in the first place, I took it to heart. And even after changing schools, I went through several bouts of depression through the years. And instead of being a normal kid at 10 years old, I had suicidal thoughts and seriously contemplated killing myself several times. And it was the darkest times of my life. And, you know, mom and dad don't know too much about this. And, I mean, obviously, things turn out okay eventually. So I'm here to tell you all that it does get better. And it may take some time, but it does get better. So as I went through school from second grade, which is where all the bad stuff happened, all the way through third grade and fourth grade into middle school and everything, I finally learned around those times that I was indeed gay, and that I was getting crushes on boys instead of girls, and that I was different, and I felt very alone. And so I put two and two together with why kids didn't like me at my previous school, and I decided to keep that secret. And I told myself that I would never admit it to myself again, nor would I tell anybody ever again, and that I'd just keep it secret and pretend to have girlfriends and everything. And I'm sure, as many of you guys know, and girls, for those of you who are gay, when you try to take part in a heterosexual relationship, it doesn't work, and it was the most awkward thing, and I can only laugh at it when I look back at it now. And I really didn't start admitting to myself that I was gay until about halfway through freshman year, and that's when I really started opening that closed door to my heart, so to speak, and I really started thinking about it and thinking, well, there's openly gay people in my high school right now, and they don't seem to be getting hurt too bad, nor really hating their life as much, and they're out completely. And so I finally started admitting it to myself, and I really finally came to terms with it. But it's one thing to come to terms with it with yourself, and a whole other thing completely to tell other people. And so I contemplated it for a couple years through freshman year and into sophomore year. And finally junior year comes around, and well, I guess actually in sophomore year, I told my first friend, and that was Tasha, and that was really scary, but she already told me that she was bi, and so I knew I was safe if I told her, and she of course was very supportive and told me that it's not that bad, and that everybody would be fine with it. But of course, me being me, and me being a normal person, really, anybody in that situation was still very scared about it, and not ready to do it, but at least I had one friend who knew. And so junior year rolls by, and I've told maybe 2 or 3 more people, and all girls at this point. I hadn't told a single male yet because they were the main source when I was younger who made fun of me the most. And so I, through one of my best friends, Trin, I actually met my first boyfriend, and I was 17 years old and hadn't been kissed yet, and we finally started going out. And that's when I finally started to make the decision, okay, I can't keep this a secret much longer. I have to tell people. I have to just come out with it, and hopefully things will turn out the best. And I just prayed to God that the people who really mattered to me wouldn't, especially my family, they wouldn't stop loving me. And it's unfortunate that so many of us have to worry about that. But luckily for me, and this is the part where it finally gets better. It sounds really bad, I know, you guys, but it has gotten better, I promise. I finally get to the point where I start coming out to all my close friends, the close-knit friends. And turns out that they're more okay with my gayness than I am. And it's one of the best things that has ever happened to me. And they completely 100% were fine with it. And, obviously it's a small group of people. I haven't come out to everyone yet, but that's a huge step, and it's a huge relief. And it was another thing entirely to tell my parents. I have 4 parents, 5 now, from divorce and everything. And I have 2 dads who grew up as Catholics, and they were so easy to tell, actually, which most people fear, especially gay guys telling their dads. It's like the biggest fear on earth sometimes. They both, all 4 of my parents already guessed it, and were completely okay with it. I rather gave my mom a very big surprise how I told her it, and I'm sure she'll never forget it. But things were all good, and it's unfortunate that some people don't get to say that they were as fortunate as me when it comes to family members. And perhaps some family members won't be as understanding at first, but you still need to disclose that part of you because it's a very big part of who you are. And it always will be, and it's not good to lie about something like that because it doesn't feel good, as I talked about earlier, to try to be somebody or not and try to be in a straight relationship when you don't really work that way. And so that was a very nice thing, and I really encourage, one parent at a time, whichever parent you are closest to, I really, really recommend talking to them about it, dropping hints every now and then. However, whatever way you do it, I personally, when I first told my stepmom, she was the first person ever I told, I wrote a letter to her because that's the best way to communicate with people. You don't have to do it verbally. In fact, I came out to a lot of my friends over the wonderful Facebook and MySpace, and there's just different ways to do it. And so after I came out to everybody, things were okay, and it started getting to where it was so much easier to say that I'm gay, and when like just a couple months beforehand, it was nearly impossible to even whisper it because it was so scary. So that was a big step, and it got to the point where I was starting to get slightly annoyed because I didn't know who at school knew and who didn't, and so I was a little bit wondering what to do next, and I decided eventually, as I was running for high school president last year, my senior year in high school, I went to a small school, Pauling Academy at Marshall here in Southeast Portland, and so it was a little easier, but still, it's a high school, and I decided to, in my presidential election speech, I decided to get up in front of all 250 people in the school and come out of the closet to them, and just to make sure that everybody knew. And of course, my friends knew about it before I did it. And part of what inspired this was a book I was reading at the time. It's called Out of the Pocket by Bill Konigsberg, or Konigsberg. Very good book. I really, really recommend it. It inspired me. It was about a California football player who was outed, and he was in that awkward stage where he was still barely able to tell friends, and he was a star football player known by the whole state, and he got outed, and it's based on a true story even. And it was really inspiring to me, because if he can do that and still, be able to be a hero even when you're outed forcefully, then who's to say that I couldn't have told everybody and done it on my own and not be too afraid. So I decided to get up on stage and just say it and tie it into my speech somehow, because we did have a special school with a special group of people and a special atmosphere there. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible to do this at regular high schools too. And so I get up there on the stage, and I'm naturally super, super, uber nervous, and I eventually did come out, and a lot of people didn't expect it, because through the years I taught myself to be more masculine, and have in the process turned a little bit more on the masculine side. I guess I'm butch, as people would put it. And I did it, and at the end of the speech, I didn't expect this at all. I was already ready to pass out or puke or both, and could barely breathe. I had all 250 people of my high school give me a standing ovation. And not only did every single person in the room accept me with open arms, but I won the election that day, and I actually became president of the school. And it was the most triumphant moment of my life so far. It was the single scariest thing to do, and it is the single scariest thing you will do, trust me. But it is the single best thing I've ever done. And in the process of that, it becomes so self-assured, and it gives you the power to face anything. And so the take-home message of this should be less about fear and less about all those beatings that the news tries to portray, which it's getting better, especially in Portland and on the West Coast. If you live in a place that's less tolerant, I really recommend moving here for college or whatever you can do. But the take-home message is, do what's best for your interest. It's going to be scary. Start with baby steps. Start coming out to people you really trust, and then start taking risks, because you may not be, you may have some people who don't like it, but it's starting to get widely more accepted. And just once you get over that hump of that fear, and once you get that self-assuredness and you get that support group behind you, there's no stopping you. It's the best thing you can do to be who you are, and only who you are. And for those people who don't accept you, well, then you can just accept the fact that they're missing out and from an awesome person that you are. So that's my story, you guys. I hope I really inspired some of you. And once again, it does get better. And get to the resources you need, and just take the steps. Good luck, everyone. Thanks.